Hi, my name is Emily Snow and I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Initiatives at Blue KC. Today we're here hosting KCNWSL for a conversation about mental health. We've brought in KCNWSL Captain Corsie for a conversation with Allie Trost. As a veteran player competing at the highest level, there are plenty of lessons to learn from Rachel's experience. Enjoy.
Rachel, let's just start with, what does mental health mean to you?
Wow, that's a big question to start. Firstly, I think it's something that's really important, and I'm really glad it's something that is now becoming more commonly spoken about. Awareness is being raised over it, because I think, to me, it's equally, if not more, important and relevant to everyday life than your physical health. And I think we all understand the physical health part, and sometimes there's a lack of sort of understanding around the mental health. Just general day-to-day, more severe issues that can arise. And to me, it's something that I have learned about through personal experience, through friends, family experience, and just through growing into adult life, I think, and just going through different experiences and learning how it's something that, you know, we all should be aware of, and we all should be able to feel comfortable knowing that it's okay to have times where you feel like you need to address certain things and ask for help, or take some time that's important for you if that is something that you feel you need.
When was a time where mental health negatively impacted your job as a professional athlete?
I mean, on that, I think you can take some really small examples, just day to day. You know, you have the pressures of performing in front of an audience, you have the pressures of trying to create success. It can be simply even just feeling low and down from not being selected. So I think there's always challenges, and that's just coming from a sporting side of that. There's other things, you know. I obviously moved to the US 7 years ago and spent large chunks being away from family. And for me, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm somebody who typically gets homesick, but there's days that sometimes just being away from family and friends weighs heavier than others. That's as simple as it can be, and it can just be something that doesn't necessarily affect you for more than a day or a morning. Or equally, that can be something that lasts a week or multiple weeks. And so there's no sort of set parameters, and I think that's what sometimes makes it difficult to understand, because it's not something that you can put into a box. And often, you know, a lot of us like to be able to rationalize things, and 1 + 1 should equal 2.
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of as broken down as it can be. And then of course there's bigger scale things when you maybe go through, again in life, things like grievances that can affect you heavily. And then similarly in sport, you know, you can go through things, long-term injuries, feeling disappointment, something where you've not achieved, where you set goals and you feel like you've let people down. You know, these are the things that you can't quantify how they'll affect you until you go through them. And by going through them, you can really see how much of an impact they can have on you, on other people. And so yeah, to me, it's something that's ingrained in everyday life, career-wise and life-wise. And so it's something I'm certainly passionate about, trying to just bring it to the fore and help people understand that a little better.
And going through those experiences, what are some things that you have learned when it comes to better taking care of your mental health, so that you're able to perform on the field and also just live your life, you know?
I think just on that, one of the really good examples is I worked really closely with a mental health coach. I remember she asked me fairly recently, she said, if you were to put your happiness in order along with soccer and family, where would your happiness rank? And when I actually answered the question, it came third. And I had never kind of thought of it in that kind of way. And I always thought I was making good decisions because I always thought I had a reason to be making them. And it just pointed out that putting yourself first is actually really important. And of course, there's times in life where you have to make decisions that can be difficult, but just from a general day-to-day, like, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that really highlighted that to me, because it can be so easy to get lost in your routine or stuck in work, or things add up, you know, and you end up, I'm really great at being the busiest person on earth and just going from one.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you just like cram your schedule. You're like, oh, could I do that? Yeah, let's squeeze that in there. And before you know it, you haven't given yourself a second to breathe all day. And then you do that a few days in a row, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, why do I feel exhausted? Why can't I focus? Why am I having a really hard time in team meetings? listening and staying, and then you realize, yeah, actually, do you know what, in the last few days, I haven't done something for me. I think that's one of the key things for everybody is, you know, how you manage your mental health. It needs to be right for you, and you need to prioritize what you need, and the little day-to-day things are the things that really can make a big difference in that.
So what are the things that Rachel Corsie does for herself?
This won't come as a shock, but for me, coffee is a big part of my life. And so I try my very best every morning to get up sort of 30 minutes ahead of when I think I need to get up to be able to get ready to go to work, be on time, be organized. And I try and give myself sort of the 20-30 minutes to just sit on the patio and have my coffee. And there's something nice about it being in the morning for me because it's normally really quiet. So there's something almost, it's like a little bit of a metaphor of there's silence just all around, and I can actually use that time to just reset and start the day. And at least you know you're starting from a place where you can say, I'm giving myself a chance to have a good day, and there might be little things in the day that don't go the way I want them to go that might make me feel anxious or a little bit stressed. But by starting from a place where you feel in a level headspace, that you've made sure you've just had a second to start on the right note, I think is something that I've built into my routine and has become really important.
And it allows you to approach every day without being reactionary. I know that that's something I always try to be mindful of, is how can I go about my day and not react to things, but just take them as they come and work through them. And that stuff. And you mentioned coffee. I'm a big coffee fan too. So that's a big part of starting my day on the right foot. And nutrition's a big part of mental health. In addition to the coffee, what are some other ways that you nourish your body and your mind to take care of your mental health?
This is so appropriate for me too, because often when I have moments where I'm easily frustrated or I'm irritated, almost to that irrational level, where you're like, that shouldn't have bothered me that much. And then my girlfriend or my mom will go, have you eaten recently? And I'm like, yeah, I probably should have lunch. and so nutrition for sure is something that, again, I've learned, and to know that nutrition is a huge part of how well your body can prepare, especially as an athlete from a performance perspective, but equally your mind is a huge part of your performance. And having a healthy routine, and the word healthy can be interpreted in many ways, and again, that's going to differ for different people. Not everybody is fueling their body to be a professional athlete. But having good habits, I think, is the biggest thing. And with food, for me, I think one of the lessons, again, I've learned over time is you can be too consumed by having too many controls and too many things in place that can be quite restrictive. And for some people that works absolutely great, and for others it's not always the right way for them. And so the way I like to think of it is every time I'm having a meal or a snack or whatever it might be, it's like to try and make as many good decisions as you can. And that kind of allows you to enable yourself that if you just want to have a donut on a Friday morning because that's what you want to have, it doesn't need to be something that is viewed as a bad thing. It can be a case of, that's great, I'm going to make sure when it comes to lunchtime, I'm going to make a good decision. Comes to dinner time, good decision. And those are the things that remove a little bit of pressure, or they do for me, and enable me as much as possible to just focus on the present moment and to just keep focused and not allow just my mind to take me into a bit of like a vulnerable place of being like, should I do that? I regret that. I shouldn't have done this. And again, as an athlete, you can be super hard on yourself, and it can be easy to go down those rabbit holes and be quite hard on yourself.
Well, and hey, donuts go great with coffee. Right? Like we can acknowledge that. Yeah. But Rachel, as a team leader and a captain, you're bringing up all of this great insight and things that you've learned throughout your career. As a leader on the team, how do you promote positive mental health with your teammates and just opening up that conversation?
As you say, it's conversation. I think that's the biggest part of it, really, is to making people feel more comfortable maybe talking about it, is that it can become something that feels like it can be discussed. And that I think that comes in many ways. There's an element of you can try and offer some guidance and share stories of things that have helped perhaps me. But equally, sometimes it's also, showing a little bit of vulnerability and saying, I've gone through something similar, or I can relate to a time when I was feeling this anxiety. And those often are the things that allow you to connect with your friends and enable them to maybe feel just encouraged to know that it's okay with what they're feeling, to feel encouraged to know that they can ask for help, to even just feel encouraged to go and speak about it with their friends, with their family. And, you know, because you don't just want to help in a sports capacity. I think, you know, there's a responsibility that we all want to be good for our friends and others around us. You know, we can affect so many people. And to me, as I say, you know, it affects us in everyday walk of life, from the smallest things to the biggest things. And so to enable it to be something that has a place to be spoken about in whatever capacity is needed, I think is the best way for it to be introduced. I don't think we should only speak about it when we feel there's maybe a big conversation that needs to be had. It can be the smallest conversations that have the biggest impact and the biggest growth for others. And you know, that's something else that I've learned. As I've said, I have a psychologist I work with just now. I've worked with others in the past, and actually often the most fruitful and purposeful sessions that we've probably had have been the times when I've gone in thinking, I actually feel like I'm having a really good day. And it's almost being in that headspace of going in feeling good is when you actually enable yourself to be the most vulnerable and dig into some of the deeper, you know, feelings that you've maybe had at a time and a place when you weren't feeling so good. So, you know, I think the more open we can have the conversation, I think the more positive impact we can have.
And it's just like taking care of a muscle, right? You just like anything else as an athlete. But when it comes to those high stress situations, like in a game, what are some things that you do to calm nerves or handle any sort of high emotion that may negatively affect your performance on the field in a game?
Those can be hard in the moment, and I don't know that I have a perfect answer to that one. I think a lot of people would say I'm quite level-headed. I would say I probably am somebody that gets too caught up in those heated moments, but equally it's hard. I mean, if something happens on the field and you know you made a mistake, you've cost a goal, it's resulted, you've lost the game, you know, it's not a good feeling. And I think sometimes just allowing yourself to feel is okay. You know, I'm someone who I'm a fixer. It's not, you know, I want to fix it. Some things I think you can't fix, you just need to go through it. And I think sometimes those highs and lows in the game, it's about knowing, it's like accepting the moment and knowing it feels low and you made a mistake and that's part of the game. Someone who's a senior player, I think, you know, the more you go through it, the more you know that's a mistake. The next thing I do doesn't need to be affected by that. And often, you know, that the best way to sort of counter that can be you try and do something super simple. So like often if I feel I've made a mistake in a game situation, typically the next thing I try my absolute best to do is do something as simple as possible. So it might be the next time you receive the ball, you just think, I'm going to take a touch, I'm just going to pass it to the nearest person and then angle again to get the ball again. But you just know that if I complete a pass, it's the next task complete. And now I know that I've moved on. And
that's great advice for anyone in any job too, not even just a professional sport. Is if you feel like you experienced a moment of failure, what are ways that you can just get back into a positive state of mind through a positive action? But recently we've seen world-class professional athletes like Simone Biles on the biggest stage at the Olympics put mental health in the spotlight by withdrawing from events and taking care of herself first, and that drew a lot of reaction. But what was yours?
It was a powerful moment as a fellow athlete, but just as a fellow person, to see that decision to put herself first. I think it's extremely hard to do, and on that stage, you know, she's one of the best competitors. Full stop. You know, like she is one of the best athletes. The things that everyone has watched her do is absolutely incredible. And you know, when you then read even further into that, some of the injuries she's gone through and the strength she's had to come back from those is also incredible. And I think to see her acknowledge and be open about it will have helped so many people, and that alone to me is remarkable. I think just to know that so many people will be able to have related to that feeling, and it will have helped so many people. And I think that to me is one of the selfless things that she could have done. And meanwhile, she also made a great decision to put herself first. So sort of the irony in that, I think, is amazing. And I know that some of it was surrounded by some criticism and negativity, and I think that just reminds us all that there's still a little bit of ignorance and naivety around this matter, that you know, it just tells us that we need to keep working on this and helping society to understand a little better and continue to make people fully be more educated around this and how we can help support people who ultimately need that.
What is your advice to anyone that's dealing with mental health, and maybe specifically when it comes to an athlete, someone who maybe at a younger point in their career where they're experiencing some of these emotions for the first time?
The biggest reminder that I hope people have somebody around them that can tell them this is that others have gone through it and others are going through it, and that it's okay to feel those things. I think one of the things that often we do, especially as athletes, is, like I say, we're very hard on ourselves, and sometimes, you know, when you go through these things, you feel almost frustrated and angry at yourself. You feel you're almost at fault, and you know, I think it's a reminder to be kind to yourself and to know that others can relate and there's others in there with you, and that there is ways to help and that there's better days ahead.
Yeah, it's a great message. And I know you like to start your day with coffee. How do you unwind? What's that? What's the other side of the day look like?
I probably shouldn't say red wine, don't think. But
red wine's a great way. We've got very similar beverage tastes, I'll just say that much. Awesome. Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. This is a great conversation, and I learned a lot. We actually have a lot in common with as far as how, you know, and I think that's such a great part of opening the conversation up when it comes to mental health, is just, you know, you learn that we're not all that different. You know, everyone's got their struggles, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining Rachel and I for this important conversation. KC NWSL and Blue KC are committed to providing support for all struggling with mental health.